You're listening to the Westminster-Canterbury Tales podcast, creating community to foster joy and well-being. Thanks for listening.
Well, welcome to another time of Tell Me a Story from Westminster-Canterbury on the Chesapeake Bay. And this is Ben Fraser, and today we have the privilege of hearing from Beverly Foote. And she has had an exciting life, and I think we're going to enjoy just hearing her. She's someone who's lived here for quite a while, both in the area and in Westminster-Canterbury. And she's been a teacher, a writer, just had a lot of good stories to tell us. A whole bunch of books she brought with us, which you can't see, but I can see. So we'd like to begin by just telling us a little bit where you're born and where you grew up and a little bit about that part of your life.
I was born in East Orange, New Jersey, and I was very sick in my first year of kindergarten. I missed all of kindergarten because I had pneumonia. But my daddy gave me a dictionary with pictures, and I learned from the words, and I studied that for almost a year while I was sick. Now that's what led to a love of writing. And I write all the time. You couldn't stop me if you tried.
Were you a good student?
I was too much of a good student. I was a perfectionist. Now that I'm almost 82 years old, I'm learning much better lessons. And the better lessons include allowing mistakes. And I never did that before. So Westminster-Canterbury is my school now, where I'm learning lessons that I didn't learn all those years before.
Well, there's always room for all of us to learn, and it's good to see you and see what you've been writing and read what you've been writing, because you're always writing on something, and you share that with me sometimes. So you were born and you lived the early life with your family, moved around a lot, I understand. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, just moved constantly, but my favorite move was when we lived in an apartment in East Orange, New Jersey, and when she saw an ad in the newspaper that she could help a woman who needed help, grandmother who lived in a huge mansion in Orange, New Jersey. If she would do laundry for the woman and cook her meals, then we could all go there to live. And so going from this tiny apartment to this huge, I call it a castle, acres of land, coal bins where my sister and I would run up and down the coals and get all messy.
You don't see that anymore around here.
No, but fortunately there were 3 bathrooms all in a row, and they all had these big old-fashioned tubs, and my sister and I would soap up the tubs, and we'd dive into one tub, run into the next tub, dive down, run into the next room, dive down that tub, and of course my mother would find all this soap all over. She didn't like it too much, but we had a lot of fun, and we would slide down the banisters, and I had my first pet, a kitten, and didn't even know until one day down in the basement I heard this noise and followed the noise, and my kitten had baby kittens.
Oh my, how exciting.
So we had baby kittens down in the basement. It was an exciting time. Loved living there.
Well, it sounded like you lived in a magical little land while you were there.
Not only that, when I was in the 4th grade, my dad, I said I wanted to start a school. So he had desks on the porch for me. So every afternoon, neighbors would come, park their bikes in the yard, and come to my school.
So you were a teacher long before you became a formal teacher.
Yes, I was probably in the 3rd or 4th grade at that time.
Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead, but you were a teacher most all of your working life, and your daughters are both teachers. So
you're right.
You have 2 daughters, and was your sister a teacher, or did she do something else?
No, my sister, she did not choose in fact, she did not like the fact that my mother forced her to attend my classes.
Well,
my sister has different skills.
Yeah. Well, I understand that. We don't always want to do what our siblings do. So you went to school and taught, and you also learned. And you went to high school. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school in West Caldwell, New Jersey. It was Grover Cleveland High School.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, yes.
Now, there's a great story that you told me earlier about your father winning some kind of contest, and that sort of changed your family life a little bit, didn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, because after that house, that castle where we lived with Granny had to be torn down for new apartments, we had to move, and temporarily moved in with my grandmother, then temporarily moved in with my aunt, and as I said, 4 of us in a single bedroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was eight people sharing one bathroom. It was challenging. But in the process, my dad, who, even though he was a chemist, he was very creative and loved to invent things, had all kinds of patents, and he won a reward for inventing a electric TV quiz game that sold big time. And I even saw it on the being reproduced in Massachusetts on the assembly line.
Wow.
So that was a reward that allowed him to build a new house for us. And he built this beautiful brick house for us. And one of my favorite memories is the way he brought barrels from work for us to put in the yard. So when it snowed, we covered the barrels with snow and watered them with our hose, and then it froze, and then we would take our sleds and slide down 3 ramps of, of barrels in the backyard. It was a wonderful experience. All due to his invention.
And where was this?
This was in West Caldwell, New Jersey.
Okay, New Jersey.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, good.
Yeah.
And you went to high school there too, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You did well?
Oh, yes. I told you I was a perfectionist.
Yeah. Okay. And then what happened next?
And then I went off to college. At the time, it was Douglas College for women only, but it became Rutgers.
Okay.
And at the time, some of the men from Rutgers would take classes at Douglas. So it was really almost co-ed, but not quite.
Right.
And I stayed there for 3 years. Yeah.
And then you're going to tell us what happened next.
This is a brave one. A brave one. I had a date with my my boyfriend who had graduated and joined the Marine Corps came back to see me one night, and lo and behold, I got pregnant and was so ashamed of myself as a college dropout, moved to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Yeah, and he was in Vietnam and had PTSD, and just was a very difficult time for him and then for your family.
And the good part of the story is that for years I focused on the trauma that I went through and the terrible mistake I made, and shame and guilt and all of that. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm almost 82 years old, I can say, wait a minute, there was a gift in all of that, and I can see the gifts and the good lesson that I learned, because even though we got divorced, I remained a virgin, if you could say that, until I met John Foote. Mm-hmm. Here at Westminster-Canterbury.
Yeah, and that was in 2002, was it? Something like that?
2000. I moved here in 2004, and we married in 2005.
And you have 2 daughters, right?
Yes.
And that's part of the good that came out of it.
Oh, there was lots of good. I mean, I enjoyed, we moved to Millis, Massachusetts, lived in the country. He asked me to put him through seminary, gave me a chance to be on the grounds of Virginia Theological Seminary, beautiful campus, all kinds of. He loved camping. We went camping all the time. So there were lots of good things that I'm finally beginning to see.
You also went back to school.
A part of it was from shame, but I said, okay, I want to graduate from the same school where I dropped out. So that's what I did. I went back, but by then it was Rutgers, so I graduated from Rutgers. Then I had the opportunity to go to the Breedlove School of English on summers when I wasn't teaching, and that's where I worked on my master's degree. And that was wonderful because that involved, as you know, 3 summers at Oxford.
Oh, my.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've been to Oxford many times. It's just such a beautiful place for people that like the academic life. It has lots of libraries, lots of pubs, lots of school classrooms. And lots of churches, actually.
Yes.
And so it's a beautiful, 38, 39 colleges make up the Oxford University. So what a wonderful experience that was, being there 3 times. I've been there over a couple dozen times. I taught classes there, and we visited all the colleges and just had a wonderful time. I mostly was teaching on Lewis and Tolkien, so Merton and Magdalen College were the schools we spent a lot of time at. But you couldn't help but see some of the others.
Oh, and Lincoln College is where I was.
Oh, okay, Lincoln. All right, great. You ended up teaching. Tell us the different places you've taught. You don't have to go through every one, but just where are some of the highlights of your teaching career?
Well, I taught in lots of places. In fact, in Virginia Beach, I've taught at so many schools in Virginia Beach. Every time someone wanted my job, I was like, okay, I'll move on. And so I taught at Plaza, Brandon, Great Neck Middle, Salem, Green Run. And then finally, when they decided to do away with the Latin book I was teaching, and I was kind of sad about that. I had enjoyed teaching Latin, and I went to a conference, a Latin conference at Norfolk Academy, and they announced that they were looking for an English teacher.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, okay, I'll check it out. And sure enough, the next day I had to give a presentation to the group, and I did, and didn't realize they were videotaping me like an interview. And so I was very happy I got the job.
And so you taught there for a few years, right?
Yes, that was the end of my career, teaching there.
Yeah. Well, it's a great school, and a lot of people from this area send their kids there. It's a wonderful experience. Give me an example of one of the experiences you had while teaching. You and I talked a little bit about a lady you met at a lake or something.
Yes, I think that was one of the highlights, was the fact that a student called me on a Saturday morning and asked me if I would come meet her at a lake where she was. And I drove out there to be with her and talk with her, and didn't realize until much later when she shared it with me and told me that she had planned to commit suicide and that I saved her life. Now that's the kind of thing that stands out as what makes a career wonderful, that kind of thing. I always loved greeting students at the door when they came in, and the classroom, and when they left. I especially enjoyed when I taught remedial students, because they felt labeled, they weren't good students. But I had each of them showcase one of their talents to the whole class. And they had different talents. I mean, one has gone on to be an architect, different, they had different gifts. And once they recognized the gifts in everyone in the class, there was no discipline problem. Which is different, because normally you would expect a lot of trouble in that kind of a classroom, but there wasn't, because they had respect for each other and their gifts. I would show them a video, and on the video, maybe 15 minutes of watching a horse in the fields or something like that, and they would watch it, and then I'd say, now tell me, what did you see, what did you smell, what did you feel, what did you hear, what did you think? And I'd write on the blackboard, back when we had chalk and blackboards, words that they came up with, or I'd help them find the word for what they were trying to express, put the words on the board, and then I'd say, now write. They discovered that they could write. They just didn't have the words. They all had the feelings, they all had the vision, but they didn't know they could write. And that was one of the highlights of my whole teaching career. And one of these students went on to advanced English, because I said, now here's what she wrote.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so it was a good career. Lots of nights, though, grading papers well into the morning.
And so your daughters saw you grading those papers?
And yes, and I laugh when I think how they said, Mom, we will never be teachers, because they saw me grading papers and staying up so late at night. Now they are both teachers, both very accomplished teachers. One a tenured professor at Mary Baldwin, and the other one a gifted teacher in Suffolk schools. Very, very accomplished, and I'm so proud of them.
Yeah, well, you should be. That's wonderful. You're a writer.
Yes.
You like to write.
Yes, I do.
And you've published, so you're a published author.
Yes. Yes.
What are some of the books you're most proud of?
Oh my goodness. I'm just grateful for these books to have touched other people's lives. When someone comes to me and says they love my book, Love Notes, because the reflections in this book help them, or mystical moments when I share the special moments, when people can relate to that, it touches me. Some people laugh about my book, Pokin' Fun Puns. Mm-hmm. And one person really loved my poem, Sheets.
Yeah, why don't you read that for us? It's brief, and you could we'd enjoy that.
I was touched that it spoke to her. Some of us remember when we could hang sheets on a clothesline, those old days. So here's the poem, Sheets. I place my basket of wash in the ankle-deep, morning wet grass below the clothesline, where I pin the sheets, dripping water from their hems. Suddenly, the wind catches them. Lifted on draughts of air they rise. They are the sails of pirate ships, heaving, pitching, and flapping, their cargo precious fragrances of earth and sky to carry to sleepers in their dreams.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You've written so many books and so many different kinds of books. And you not only write books, but you write articles. And you've had a pretty substantial writing career. And it's something that you do to publish, but also you do because you just enjoy it. It's part of your identity and who you are. So we'd like to know a little bit about some of the books that you've published and articles that you've published, and then a little bit about what's your approach to writing.
Most of these books are on Amazon. Except for Sheets, which is a book of poems that I wrote.
Well, tell us about that squirrel book.
Oh, the squirrel book. Okay. Frisky the Squirrel. I was walking...
And it's a children's book, right?
Oh, it's a children's book. Yes, I have 2 children's books. This one and the Red Bicycle. And also Lily's Bird. 3 children's books.
Which I'm going to read to my granddaughter.
Thank you. Thank you. So Frisky, I used to see squirrels here at Westminster-Canterbury all the time, and I used to even pick up the acorns and carry them in my pockets so I could feed the squirrels. And the squirrels got used to me feeding them, they would sort of come to me. And one day I was walking along the path that leads down by the garage, and I saw a squirrel lying in the grass and realized the squirrel was dying. And that was so sad to me, that moment of seeing him with his paws around him. But it motivated me to write this book about how squirrels, like pets, go to heaven. So basically this book is for children to realize that when their pet dies, it's not the end. Pets go to heaven too, because the squirrel has lots of fun with the children in this book, but then the squirrel dies. And the girl realizes in a dream, the squirrel comes to her and tells her about heaven. So it's for children.
Sure.
I was sad when my dog died. Really sad.
Yeah.
I had a dog that had rabies and died, and I had to take him out and bury him myself. So I feel that sadness that children feel, and I wanted them to realize there's more.
So you have 3 children's books, but you also have a Pokin' Fun at Puns. You have a kind of a...
Love Notes.
Oh, and then you have Love Notes, which is thoughts that you've had and for each day of the year, and place on the page for people to write their own thoughts. Exactly. Which is a great little thing. You have a book of poetry, but then you have a Bible blanket. What is that?
I read the entire Bible 7 times, and then decided I wanted to take whatever insight I had and put it in a book. So this is related to the entire Bible.
Oh, wow.
I'm always trying to learn something.
Yeah.
And this one...
A Journey of the Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, meditations on Lent.
When I had a fellowship to St. Andrew's.
Sure.
And while I was there, I wrote in my journal every day.
That's in Scotland, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I've been there. It's
really
beautiful.
Oh, and the university gave me my own flat. It was wonderful.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and so I wrote in my journal all the time. And then I decided that I would take excerpts from my journal and connect them with Lenten meditations.
Yeah.
And so that's what this book is.
Oh, that's great.
Journey of the Heart. It's basically about Scotland.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm Fraser. I'm Scottish, and so that you got me right there. But of all the places in Scotland, I like St. Andrews the best because it's such a great university. Now, some of you who are golfers might know St. Andrews because that's where the famous golf club is. But I actually went there and was going to not even go to the golf club. I just wanted to go to the university. But on my way out, we got lost and we ended up at the golf place. So we got out and looked around a little bit, but I'm not a golfer, so.
But I went to the spot where the golf club is, and there was a sign, "No women allowed," the time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I put my foot down right there on the sod to make sure that woman put her foot in that. No women allowed.
Good for you.
But when I was leaving Oxford and decided to take a trip to Wales, this woman on the train, I said, "Do you know another place like Oxford that welcomes American students?" And she said, "Oh, St. Andrews, St. Andrews." Well, when I got hired at Norfolk Academy, the first meeting they said, "Well, the applications for St. Andrews are in."
Oh my, that's great! And you'd already been there.
And so I let a few years go by before I applied, but when
okay.
But then I applied and I got it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. No, I love St. Andrews. I mean, Scotland's beautiful, and I've traveled around a bit, and everybody wants to go to Edinburgh, but St. Andrews is the best.
Oh, it is. It is. And this one, I took pictures of my children.
Oh, how fun.
And put them and said, "What makes a good life?"
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. And you've done a lot of essays and even some scholarly work, too. I know you pass them along to me every once in a while.
And in this book, too, which is not in print, but this...
Lily's Bird.
Yeah.
I like that book. Yeah.
And it's because my singing teacher inspired this book. She said, "Now, the bird doesn't sing because he's happy. The bird is happy because he sings."
Of course.
So if you want to be happy, you have to sing.
And you have sung all your life, starting in grammar school, is that right?
Yeah.
And in church choirs.
Even before, yeah.
Okay. And you still sing. There's a choir here at Westminster-Canterbury.
Well, for a while I was singing both in my church and the choir here, but then I couldn't keep up both, so I just do it at my church.
Oh, so you're at the church now.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Singing is such a rewarding experience and activity. It encourages all of us, I think, not only to hear it, but as you participate in it. And you said, too, that there's a singing or a musical group here on Thursday nights that meet, and you participate in that.
It's fun, yes.
Yeah.
And the only book I don't have is the one I gave to you, The Red Bicycle.
Oh, yes.
And that is for children, too, because I wanted children to learn a lesson that I had learned. I was supposed to teach the Garden of Eden story to kindergarten at church. I always taught Sunday school along with regular school, but I couldn't bring myself to teach that story to the children. It was too painful. And I rewrote it into Ned's Bicycle, where Ned makes a mistake, does what he's not supposed to do, and his dad comes to comfort him when he's crying and says, "Now, what did you learn? What did you learn from your mistake?" And he says what he learned, and his dad said, "Okay, now, son, there's one more thing." And he goes, "What's that?" He says, "Forgive yourself." And so I wanted the children in kindergarten to see that there's no punishment for wrong things. We just learn lessons when we make mistakes. And we need to forgive ourselves, which is something I'm learning much later in life.
So let me just make sure I understand. A good portion of your life was raising two daughters as a single parent, is that right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And that was challenging. For years, I was very sad when their dad coaxed them to come live with his new wife. And now, like I say, I'm beginning to see things in a new way. I never could have gone to Bread Loaf. I never could have gone those summers in Vermont. I never could have done the poetry workshops at UVA. Never could have gone to the Swanee Writers Conference or the Writers Conferences at Princeton Theological Seminary. Never could have gone to study at Oxford for 3 summers. Never could have gone to St. Andrews. I would have been so focused on mothering. So what at the time seemed like a terrible loss to me, now I can say, wow, amazing.
And you still have a great relationship with your daughters.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. I know.
Yeah. You and I have that in common. I was a single parent and raised my 2 boys, not girls, but boys, by myself for much of my life. And it's a challenge, but it's a joy as well. You moved here, and how did that come about?
Okay.
You tell us another story.
do we have time for that story?
Sure we do.
Okay. It all started, I had a dream one night, and in my dream, I was a preacher standing at the pulpit, and I said to the congregation, "And God is like a horseshoe crab." And the next morning, much to my surprise, there in the newspaper, the headline was of horseshoe crab, and it said, "The horseshoe crab has existed before the dinosaurs." I thought, wow. The horseshoe crab is used to test pharmaceuticals because its blood is so pure it will not tolerate a single impurity. And I thought, interesting. Well, then I got ready to go meet my friend who lived here on the bay, and had a swim in her pool, and she said, "Now I'm going in to take a shower. What would you like to do?" I said, "Well, I'd like to walk down the beach. I want to get a feel if Westminster-Canterbury is the right place for me."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Okay." So I started walking, and I noticed one little children playing by the water, and a horseshoe crab. Kept walking. Another horseshoe crab. Kept walking. Didn't pay any attention. When I got to the seawall of Westminster-Canterbury, there was a 4-foot mound of horseshoe crabs. I said, "But God, they're all dead." And the answer that comes to me is, well, how else could I get them here? But much later, after I moved in here, there was another article on the horseshoe crab, and it showed that it's not because they're dead, it's because they're molting. They've outgrown their shell. And this is a place where I came to outgrow my shell. Yeah.
What a great thought.
Yeah. So that's when I decided, and I had a realtor who was taking me because I was going to move anywhere, took me all over, every place, looking at places. And I said, well, I really was interested in Westminster-Canterbury. She said, if that's what you want, go for it. So I got that extra encouragement.
Sure.
So it wasn't long after I moved in here, very, very shortly, that I met the love of my life, who showed me what unconditional love is. And that's when I met John Foote and had 7 years with him.
Do you remember when you first saw him?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Of course. I was sitting in the entrance. I heard him talk to the receptionist. That's what I heard. And I thought, who is that man? I admired his presence, his stature, his poise, but mostly the kindness in his voice, the way he spoke to the receptionist, the way he treated her. And I thought, who is that man? I wish I were married to someone like that. Now, I had been single for 35 years. In fact, I had said, I won't marry again unless the Dalai Lama proposes. Well, the first letter in my mailbox here said, it was looking for money, but it said, a letter from the Dalai Lama. And I thought, oh, that could be a sign. Much later, I told John he was my darling Lama. But anyway, I heard him speak, and I thought, who is that man? Time went by. I saw him walk down the hallway, no one behind him. I thought, I guess he's not married. Didn't do anything. And one night, I came in late and had been tutoring, and Sandy, who worked here, said, oh, there's someone I want you to meet. I think the two of you have a lot in common. He was sitting by the elevator. His wife had died 2 years prior, and he was grieving for her, and he was sitting there very sad. She said, I think the two of you have a lot in common. And he said, oh, have a seat. I didn't know he had, one of his careers, besides being an Air Force pilot, he had been a personnel director. Well, he interviewed me for 2 hours. And I thought, okay, either I passed the interview or I flunked. And I didn't know until one day at a meeting for new people. I didn't even see him till the end of the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, I looked over, saw him, and he winked at me. And I said, he likes me. So the two of us, we took walks together, and eventually he asked me to marry him.
And you said yes right away.
Oh, no. I said, "Oh, John, I know I should not ask God for a sign, but I hope you don't mind if I ask for a sign." And he said, "Oh, no, that's fine. Go ahead." So I did, and I waited. And one day I was sitting out on the terrace, and for a half hour, a swarm of dragonflies flew by. I've never seen so many dragonflies for such a long time. Such a big swarm. And then two of them came and landed on the wooden arm of the chair where I was sitting. And I said, "Okay, God, if these dragonflies mate, I'll take that as a sign." And sure enough, the dragonflies mated right there on the arm of the chair. So when I saw him, I said, "John, I had a sign." And he said, "Did?" And I said, "Yes, John, I'll marry you." And because people had seen us holding hands and walking outside, one person had said, "Are you two an item?" We knew that everybody was sort of interested, so we just invited everyone to the wedding. We even had catering provide refreshments for the reception.
Sure.
And we had a bus come over, and the church was packed with people from Westminster-Canterbury, so we all celebrated together.
Oh, that's great.
And we had 7 years together before he died.
Yeah. It's a beautiful story.
Yes, a beautiful memory.
Anything else you need to say?
The one thing I would add is grateful for this place that sheds joy and well-being. It's the great place to be. Thank you.
Beverly, that was a beautiful interview and a beautiful life, and I appreciate you sharing some of it with us. Until next time, we'll tell you a story.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Westminster-Canterbury Tales podcast. Thank you for listening.